Just quickly, thought this one might be of interest. Somebody asked a week or two ago about what the purpose of insoles is for somebody with CMT. And I saw a fairly interesting patient who didn't have CMT but did have a neurological condition which creates a very similar situation. That person has given their permission for me to use this for educational purposes. So these are the casts of the feet, obviously slightly unconventionally shaped, about sort of 2/3 as long as they are wide. As they sit on the ground, they are plantar flexed and inverted. So the muscles on the outside and at the front are very, very weak. The muscles at the back and on the inside are somewhat stronger, and the muscle on the back is tightened because it's been that way for a long time. Because of the way the foot will flex, if you point it downhill for a long enough period, it will bend there. The major problem was on the left foot. Now, that lump that you can see there, that's not actually something that was on the foot, that's something I've built onto it. But that area there was very, very heavy callus, which has in the past ulcerated. Because of course, if you are walking entirely on the inside and forward bit of the foot, that's where all the load is going to go. Stick this person on a pressure mat, you'll see very, very little load under the heel, masses under there, very little under the forefoot. So all of the load is being taken there. So in terms of our objectives for that device, or for that person, first one is to reduce the pressure on the point which is ulcerating. I was about to say the painful point, it would usually be, but of course with sensory neuropathy you don't always get pain. So to reduce the pressure on the danger spot. Secondly, we want to spread the load out a little bit more, because at the moment the pressure is all on one area, and that's not very stable, it's wobbly. So if you have a broader area of the ground in contact with the foot, they'll be less inclined to be wobbly. Thirdly, where the foot has got this strong tendency to do that, if we can push up and try and push it over a little bit straighter, that would be a useful thing as well. It has to be mobile to do that. You can't do that if the foot is rigid in that position, but there's usually a little bit of play. And even if it is rigid, having a certain amount of force that way to sort of stop it going any further is not a terrible idea. So this is the old-fashioned way of making insoles. Most people these days use CAD/CAM, which is where you scan the foot. This is the old-fashioned way, but I still like the old-fashioned way. And this is what we've come up with. So a couple of things to notice. First of all, it is a half-length device. The reason for that is that this person has very retracted toes with pressure lesions on the top of the knuckles. Anything I put under the ball of the foot or under the toes is going to take up room and potentially cause aggravation. So there's no need, we can just have it that long. If you need to have additional cushioning, you can always put a separate cushion layer underneath and just sit the insole on the top of it. But most important is that we don't cause any ulcers there, because we're trying to relieve the ulcer there. If we end up causing ulcers there, then robbing Pete's to pay Paul. As far as the posting is concerned, we've got a nice close fit to the foot, so that will be perfectly fitted, with a slightly downhill slant. So because the Achilles is tight and the foot can't actually get to there, we're accepting that it is going to be pointing downhill and spreading the load out exactly across the whole surface area. We've got a lot of wedging, we've got a lot of pitching. If you look at that from the back, you can see it is really canted over that way quite significantly. Don't know how well you can see that from the front. But that's where we are trying to stop the foot rolling outwards and have it rolling inwards. This is where it gets tricky, having an arch support and a lateral wedge, because an arch support obviously on the inside is going to try and push it that way. But if it's big enough, you can pull that off. Finally, we need to try and avoid the ulceration. So what we've done here is, with the cast, I've actually built that lump onto the cast. So that's not a part of the foot, that's something I've added. A lump on the cast means a dent in the insole. So if you look at the actual device, and again I don't know how well you can see that, there is a cavity, quite a deep one, about probably 5 or 6 mil, where the pressure bit is. So hopefully as the outside of the foot sits across it, it won't in real life float in the air, but if the foot was completely rigid, that would actually be held off the ground. As it is, it will bend down into it, but it will be less. Also, the grey stuff underneath is squishy. It's poron, that's a cushioning material. And I've ground the EVA, the blue stuff, in there very, very, very thin. So just at there, it's quite solid, but if you squeeze in the cavity, you're actually squeezing down into the poron. So you've got cushioning under there as well. So this particular device, which as I say is not for somebody with CMT, but it's for a neurological condition that comes with a lot of the same things, is trying to do lots of things. Roll the foot in because it's tending to roll out. Spread the pressure out so that it's across a broader area. Not take up any room in the end of the shoe so that we don't cause any problems there. Cushion under the outside edge, the bony bit where it's pushing into the ground and callousing up and ulcerating, and also deflecting pressure away from that area. So I hope that's helpful.